Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. We'll be talking about as far as the politics of agitation with the PTI is concerned, the call that is being given from Imran Khan, the ramifications of that for overall for the political process. How does the government look at it? Of course, the foreign funding case that the party faces, which is set to be heard every day for now, another 20 days to go for the verdict. We'll be talking about that. We'll also be talking about overall the kind of politics that we are seeing at this time, the politics of agitation in the light of the considerable difficulties the government says that it faces because of the state of economy left the country was left in when they came in. All of those things today on Perspective. I have with me Rana Ihsan Afzal from the PMLN, Abdullah Mumtaz Kaloon from the PTI, and Asad Rahim Khan, who is a legal expert and an analyst. Thank you so much for joining us today. Ji, Rana Sahab, how do you look at this today? How are you looking at the call by Imran Khan of, this Islamabad march? Pursuant to the jalsas, the rallies, of course, they've been trying to build momentum. And now the call that he has said that his supporters are to wait for. How do you look at this? How does the government look at this overall? How does the PMLN look at it?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, MAHRUKH. Well, it is their democratic right to go do jalsas all across Pakistan, and then even if they want to do a march, we welcome them. But they have to abide by the law of the land. They should follow the procedures, and they should engage with the administration on anything of what they are planning to do. And if it is within the law, we will allow it. We will not stop it. We will not discourage it, as they did when they were in government. We just did a long march. The People's Party did a long march from Karachi. We went all the way. We were supposed to, but then we didn't. But we went to Gujranwala, and then Mariam Bibi also went to Islamabad and Pindi. So obviously, as long as it's within the bounds of the law, we welcome it. And I think nothing. But one thing should be certain to everyone, that that governments do not fall because of these marches. They've done this in the previous regime as well, when they were in opposition. They did the dharna, and that did not end in the,
Rana Sahab, what is the purpose then of this march, in your opinion, as as a political, in terms of the light of the political realities of today? What is the purpose behind this call, behind this march for the PTI? Of course, they are, he's, as far as Imran Khan is concerned, he's saying call elections, and that is, of course, his main assertion during these rallies.
So the purpose of this call, or this trying to mobilize the people of Pakistan or the PTI supporters, is basically putting pressure on the government for early elections. And why do they want early elections? They want elections because, one, they built a narrative around international conspiracy, and number two, they think, I believe that they think that if the election is delayed, the international conspiracy, it is already fully exposed. But then people, after the narrative might just fade away. So they want that the early election should happen while this international conspiracy is being bought by the PTI fan club. Number one. Number two, they want early elections because they want that none of their corruption scandals should surface, because obviously the new government is going to investigate, and there's not going to be any political victimization or political engineering via accountability, but accountability when it takes its course.
Right. Let me come back to you. I'm going to go to Abdullah Mumtaz
as the most government in the last by Transparency International. So they feel that if
Ji, Abdullah, overall, I hope you were following Rana Ihsan Afzal. Ji, can you hear me, Abdullah? You need to unmute yourself. Ji, can you hear me?
I can indeed, yes.
Okay, so the issue at this time, as far as Rana Ehsan Saab is saying, he's saying that, as far as the democratic principles are concerned, they're not against the march. They've done it themselves also, and it should proceed because it's, you're right. But in terms of it hindering any accountability on the part of this government, that's not going to happen. And two, as far as early elections are concerned, I think there's a statement that they will happen after the government completes its tenure, this government. Overall, what do you think will happen, and what does the PTI hope to achieve from this march?
MAHRUKH, Bismillah. First of all, thank you for inviting me on your show. The Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf simply wants to have an early election, and this is not something new. PDM have been crying themselves hoarse for the last 3.5 years. We want early elections. This is the whole setup is selected. We would accept it. They've been saying that from day one of the parliament session. So Chairman Imran Khan did one better. He gave the early election to them on a silver platter. He's like, here it is, take the early election. And what do Mr. Shahbaz Sharif Saab do? He goes to court. He literally begs the Supreme Court justices, please restore the government. We want to go through the vote of no confidence. We want to come to power. I mean, so there's such a clear disparity between the two. So what PTI wants is an early election. And MAHRUKH, I have to share an anecdote. I was just before COVID hit, I was having tea with a former governor of the Punjab. He was a very potent force in the Punjab many decades back. And he's like, Beta, what is the thing that politicians fear the most? I, simply being very naive at that time, answered, it must be losing the electorate. He's like, no, it is basically the unpredictable will of the people. And now I've come to realize what that unpredictable will is. It's the silent vote. You saw the protest across Pakistan in every city, every commune on the Sunday. The next day, when Imran Khan was voted out of no confidence, I mean, there were people who were protesting from every corner. That was the silent vote, and that is why I say that the opposition, the PDM government, the coalition, have bottled the election.
No, but whether that is true or not, of course, whenever the elections, are you afraid? I mean, because this is what the PMLN says, that as far as, continuing your momentum is concerned, is there some fear that that might not be possible if they are delayed, the elections? Because at this time, if people are coming out, it's not necessarily true that this momentum will ride through for a long time.
MAHRUKH, you saw with the dharna as well, it did ride through. We managed to sustain it for a total of 126 days. It's a record in the Pakistan's history of the protest that Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf has done. And one thing Chairman Imran Khan Saab is very good at is being in opposition. He's been in opposition for 22 years of his political life, and he will be able to sustain it. It's not just about him. This is about the future of Pakistan. There's been a blatant foreign conspiracy in the internal affairs of Pakistan. And, we know who's behind it. It's the United States. The United States is no stranger to meddling in the internal affairs of Pakistan, whether it was Richard Armitage in the following the attacks on 9/11 when he told Pervez Musharraf, you're either with us or against us, or whether it was during Henry Kissinger and Zulfikar Bhutto's time. It has happened time and time over again. So we Pakistanis stop having to bury our heads in the sand and awaken up to the fact that we're not a sovereign nation. We have these international powers who are trying to force us, coerce us to take international measures. They're trying to intervene in our foreign policy, which I say
Let me come back to you. I'll go to Asad Rahim. Ji, Asad, overall, as far as PTI's style of politics is concerned, if we look at, the politics of agitation, again, as a political party, they're marching, the long march, the call for it, the call for early elections. How do you perceive the overall momentum, so to speak? Do you think that it's going to be able to achieve the kind of, or sustain the kind of pace that it has started with?
Ji MAHRUKH, thank you for having me. I think it strategically makes sense for the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf to be doing what it's doing. They understand that if the current government is able to reach the finish line, i.e. August of 2023, then not only will they be able to scupper whatever criminal cases are against them, they'll be able to make very important appointments in certain institutions. They will also be able to appoint their people to the ECP, and they are currently thinking of dissolving NAB. So a great rearrangement of the political landscape is before us if the opposition does succeed in getting to August of 2023. The PTI is going to seek to preclude that by ramping up as much street pressure as it can. Legally speaking, obviously, there's not much to contend. This government has been, at least through our parliamentary system, been able to secure a majority of votes and can last a year more. If the PTI succeeds in fomenting so much pressure that they go to elections earlier on, then we might see a different outcome. Right now, the momentum is with the PTI. I think it's an open question as to whether they can sustain this.
Asad, as far as vote of confidence is concerned, at this time, we have a president who is, of course, affiliated. One can't ignore affiliated with the previous government. There's also been some talk about, if as far as members are concerned. Now, how do you look at the resignations as they stand today, as far as the PTI members are concerned, legally speaking? And what is to prevent from the president for asking for a vote of confidence, in which case, even out of 172, if there are 2 or 3 members decide to vote, not to vote, then, that might prove a problem for this government?
Well, legally speaking, it is entirely the prerogative of the members of the PTI to resign as and when they want to. I think it's a very bad decision. The experience of Pakistan People's Party in 1985 is before us. It led to a generation of Muslim leaders that threw the entire party out of Punjab, and they never recovered after the partyless election. So what is the utility of the PTI actually vacating the space for the opposition, well, the now government parties, to bulldoze unilaterally appointments to state institutions, including the ECP, that the PTI can tell us? But obviously, this is linked to a larger delegitimization of the current government, in which the PTI is trying its level best to say that this is not an entity that should continue forward. As far as the president is concerned, with regards to his remaining, again, this is part of your constitutional design. He can only be impeached by two-thirds of the
which the numbers the government doesn't have.
That's right. And as far as the president himself saying that there should be a vote of confidence, see, here my issue is that if you were elected in 2018, the presumption should have been, and this is something that carried on from 2008 onward, to let the man complete his tenure and then vote him out in 2023. We didn't have that. We had this completely needless destabilization just a year before the election. But now, to turn to the other side, for the PTI to now ratchet up this foreign conspiracy business is I think it's bad overall for this country. No foreign conspiracy forced the Prime Minister to appoint Usman Buzdar. No foreign conspiracy forced the Prime Minister to lose the confidence of the military establishment. No foreign conspiracy forced him to, on ground get sucked into this vote of no confidence. So we need to be very clear about what it is that we're advocating. It makes for good politics. It's not good for the country.
Right, let me come back to you on that note. Rana Sahab, as far as the foreign funding case is concerned, suddenly, of course, pursuant to the directions of the court, it is going to be heard every day now. As a political party which is going to face the foreign funding case, we've also heard Imran Khan come out and say that there's a threat that he might be disqualified. There is a threat that these cases will be used against him. There's a threat that all of those things that he's saying in his political rallies, in his jalsas. Do you think that that's just hyperbole? That's his addressing his followers, or do you think that as the government, how do you look at it?
Well, you see, he's preparing the audience for another conspiracy theory. So that is what he does. He builds really good narratives, and he's putting in their minds that there is this conspiracy against him. and the foreign funding case is part of that conspiracy, whereas the reality is that this case has been pending since 2014, and it has almost been 6 plus 2 8 years that the case has not reached a conclusion. So it is about time that this case should reach its conclusion. And if, as it seems by the report issued, that if there are things which have been misrepresented, accounts have been hidden, and they have had transactions of millions and billions, then obviously, if a prime minister, a former prime minister, Nawaz Sharif, could get disqualified on the fact that he did not declare an income from his son's company, which he had not yet received, and he got kicked out because of that. So obviously, if there is a party which has been receiving millions and billions, and they have been hiding dozens of accounts and those transactions, and then on top of that, they have violated the law of foreign funding, that how a foreign funding can be accepted by non-Pakistani citizens. So obviously, if they get disqualified from that, it is going to be according to law. So that is what we're expecting, that it is an open and shut case. But on the other hand, because in Pakistan you have a judiciary which is very slow in concluding cases, so you can build any conspiracy theory, and you have a media which is divided, which is taking sides. So you come across neutral media personalities. It's quite rare in Pakistan. So anything can go in Pakistan. Any
Right,
conspiracy
let me come back
theory
to you. Ji,
can
Abdullah,
be.
as far as this conspiracy is concerned, after the NSC meetings, latest findings, of course, we saw Imran Khan Sahab come out and we saw him speak. He had his own narrative that he put forward as far as the conspiracy is concerned. But overall, do you not see the whole conspiracy narrative falling flat?
MAHRUKH, if you see the tied up people on the streets of Pakistan, I don't see it falling flat. I mean,
Okay.
let's go back to basics. 3 weeks back, Shahbaz Sharif Sahib was saying there is no conspiracy, there is no letter even. This is just something that's been concocted by Shah Mahmood's people at the foreign ministry. And now there's been a complete 180 degrees, and we have been told that the National Security Council meeting which took place, in which he's accepted that there was a communique, there was this cipher given to Ambassador Asad Majid Khan. So, first of all, he even said in one of his clips, Shahbaz Sharif Saab does seem to have a tendency to do this. He becomes very emotional. He said, well, if the cipher turns out to be real, I'll go and join Chairman Imran Khan himself. Well, that's not happened, so he's still the Prime Minister. And I would like to say that the support amongst the people of Pakistan across the country is growing. People do not want this. People voted for Chairman Imran Khan for the full 5-year tenure. Like Barrister Asad said, there's been a presumption since 2008 that governments should be allowed to complete their 5-year term. I mean, what was the urgency? I mean, they say the PDM says, oh, it was the economy. No, because it was not the economy. Economy was probably worse during the COVID years, but they did nothing. Why? What was the urgency that they had to go through with this? What was the urgency that they rushed to the Supreme Court to restore the government after Chairman Imran Khan gave them the election on a silver platter? I mean, I also think they're trying to probably influence some appointments. They're trying to, like Barrister Asad put it, I can't put it any better, scupper the accountability process, the cases against him. I mean, it's the first time in the history of Pakistan we have a father and son duo who are both on bail. Father is the Prime Minister of the country, the son is the Chief Minister-elect of Punjab. And yeah.
Why not let him take oath, Abdullah? Why is, if you talk about these kind of roadblocks, let me come back to you. I'll go to Asad on this. Asad,
I can
overall,
answer that right now before.
Okay, fair enough. Please.
I mean, MAHRUKH, all the Pakistanis were shocked to see what happened on the floor of the Punjab Assembly, the ruckus. I mean, there's one of our MPs, PTI MPs, is in a
PTI was
coma.
doing it.
The police were invited into the chamber for the first time in the constitutional history of Pakistan. I mean, I can draw parallels with when King Charles I rushed into the House of Commons with his troops to arrest the speaker, arrest of 4 MPs. I mean, it was something tantamount to that. The democracy got trampled that day. The whole of the election in the Punjab, the legitimacy of that is in question. I mean, and that is why we have to tread with caution.
But Abdullah, don't you think that democracy is getting, stampeded by the kind of, blocks that PTI is putting up? We saw what happened in the National Assembly. As far as the Provincial Assembly is concerned, not letting Hamza Shehbaz take oath. It's just one of those. What can one call it? It's a gimmick. What would you want to call it? Why not let it go forward? I mean, you have to accept it, right?
MAHRUKH, I mean, democracy is being impeded since day one of PTI's government. I mean, we saw the Bilawal Zardari Saab saying Prime Minister selected government. I mean, labels like that. They rushed, they tried to do long marches, which fizzled out. They tried to protest across Pakistan. They did everything. Like I said, they cried themselves hoarse. Please give us an election. Please, they were begging. And when the election was given, they bolted. So,
okay, let me come back to you. Asad, how do you look at it as a lawyer? From the very beginning, taking advantage, we've seen how, as far as this governor giving oath to Hamza Shehbaz is concerned, saying that it has to, of course, it's not, first the PTI's narrative was that the president cannot appoint, he can only appoint, he has, only the president can appoint, as I understand it, and that has to be, of course, the advice of the Prime Minister is binding. There doesn't seem to be two opinions on that, but they flouted that. Then there was this whole time period in which I understand there are 15 days in which again the name has to be recommended, and then in another 10 days by which time it has to be accepted. There are not two, I mean there's not a choice there. So at best they can maybe delay 25 days according to the constitution. The way that this is being stretched, the way that these provisions are being manipulated, I mean, for the lack of a better word, how do you look at it?
Well, by way of full disclosure, we have provided legal advice on this particular matter. But the law is very clear. The law is black and white. If you read Article 140, if you read the Nawaz Sharif versus President judgment in 1993 and the Aurangzeb Barki judgment in 2011, the superior courts are also clear. It says the governor shall. So the governor shall call upon the elected chief minister to take oath. And the superior courts have also held that the oath is before the almighty entity. It is not before any human being. It is not before any mortal governor. So what does that tell us? That tells us that the constitutional command is that if a chief minister is elected by a majority, which the current chief minister-elect has been, then the governor is mandated to call upon the chief minister and have him make oath before himself. Now, if the governor refuses or if the governor is unable, the constitution makes provision for that as well. And it says nominate the speaker, because the speaker was Mr. Parvez Elahi and is therefore compromised. Then it says that the president can nominate another person. So the pith and substance of this entire argument is that what we are seeing is a complete infringement of the constitution. There is no great debate to be had. If the chief minister is elected, the parliamentary process is such that the governor must have him take oath. And if you feel for any, your moral qualms are being affected, then resign. But this trend for and again, I want to reiterate, I wanted this government to get to the 5-year term. This was a very, very bad precedent that happened with the vote of no confidence being filed in March for reasons that had nothing to do with the Prime Minister losing confidence. But after that, you cannot via Article 5 say, let's dissolve the Parliament. You cannot say now via the President and the Governor, I'm going to wheel jam the entire process. This really cuts to the core of what our parliamentary system is about, which is the majority vote. The majority vote has decided, and the governor, as a symbol of the federation, must now push this through. This has been a very bad 2 months for this country's constitutional democracy.
Let me come back to you. I want to talk about how it's going to, in terms of, as in what precedents are we going to be looking at in the future as far as the political process is concerned. Let me come back to you. Ji, Rana Sahab, we've seen, a lot of things that happened, like Asad is saying, in the last 2 months are unprecedented. Of course, they will have future repercussions also. But in terms of, let's talk about economy, in terms of, we are, of course, there's been criticism on PTI on the fuel subsidy and the results of which we are seeing as far as this government, your government now is concerned. The PMLN government is concerned. But overall, of course, for you to walk into this kind of challenging situation, of course, we have Miftah Saab negotiating with the IMF also. But what do you expect in terms of economy in the next 2-3 months? You are also going to be giving the next budget. So the challenges, are they surmountable at all if you look at the economy particularly?
Well, firstly, I think whatever has happened according to the Constitution of Pakistan. No confidence motion is part of the Constitution of Pakistan, and we have just applied that. So nothing unconstitutional has happened. If there is vote buying or money being spent, that is completely illegal, and that has not happened because there is no evidence which has surfaced regarding that issue. So about the economy, the reason why we go for the no confidence motion is that we felt that if this regime continues the way economy is going, maybe, it would have been impossible to turn it around later on, maybe after 1.5 years. So this intervention was to, hold the reins of the economy at a time where it is very difficult. Things are very bad, but we have to control them and we have to take tough decisions. Like Miftah Saab has already announced that we will be taking back the subsidies on the petroleum because they were unsustainable. And it was a political gimmick. It was a trap, an economic trap set by Imran Khan, who did not have the money. The government did not have the money to afford these subsidies, and they had committed with IMF to increase the levy over a period of time and take it up to 30 rupees. And yet, they sabotaged that process with the IMF, and they sabotaged the future of the Pakistan's economy. So we're making that correction, and we know these will be unpopular moves, but they have to be made. And we will, obviously in that process, we will also guide the people of Pakistan why these steps have to be taken. And hopefully, the outlook of the world in the next 2 quarters is quite not so great. But we believe that after 6 months, things will start improving. And once we resume the IMF program, even though it comes with some difficult steps to be taken to stabilize the economy, but that is the only way forward we're left with today. And we believe that after a few months, things will start improving. And during the last leg of this government, we will see many things going down, be it commodity prices, be it inflation. So we feel that in the last leg, we will be able to give a lot of relief to the people of Pakistan.
Let me come back to you. Ji, Abdullah, why not instead of calling for early elections, which is the demand now, why not wait? If you are so sure that this government will not be able to deliver on their promise of correcting the economy, giving it a new direction, giving people the kind of relief that they want, why not let them complete the rest of the term that is left and then go into elections? What is the PTI so afraid of? What is Imran Khan so afraid of? Does he not think he will have that kind of support a year from now? What is driving this? This Jalsa movement, this long march, if you want to call it, whatever, Islamabad march. What is driving this?
Mahrukh, firstly, Chairman Imran Khan Sahib is not scared of anything at all, except for Allah, the Almighty. I have to say that a few weeks back, all the relevant quarters, the parties had written off Imran Khan, that he has lost the support of the people. Even some members on PMLN were of the view that as soon as we get elected, we'll uh, wrap up the setup within 3 months, 90 days. We'll be calling for elections. But the next day that Khan Saab's just on the Sunday, they saw the crowds, the charged up crowds across the whole country. I mean, cities, towns, villages, and that's when they thought, okay, we can't call for elections, because if we call for elections, Imran Khan Saab will get the two-third majority and will be able to make the necessary changes to fix this logjam in our political system. So that's what actually happened. Now, as far as the 1 year is concerned, for us PTI, it's basically the legitimacy of this government. I mean, we have a cipher which has been verified, substantiated by the National Security Council. We have someone, an official in the United States, who delivered clear threats to our ambassador, and we want that to be investigated. I mean, who is the biggest beneficiary of that cipher? I mean, was it as foretold? So for us, it's more about the legitimacy, the sovereign aspect of our nation and what has followed since our independence. We have to ask the difficult questions. Are we truly an independent nation, or are we just the stooges of the foreign?
But Abdullah, you're asking the court. Imran Khan is asking the court to take it up, right? He's also said this in his
Court should
speeches.
take it up. I mean, if the court is open for 24 hours, as I'm being led to assume it is these days, it should take these steps. It should investigate this cipher. It's been a blatant intervention at the very least in the internal affairs of Pakistan. They should follow the money trails, the setting up of the illegal stock exchange in the Sindh House. Everyone knows that. It's the age of digital media. We all saw what was happening. The horse and the cattle trade market that was had been established. So we need to follow the money trails. It's all there.
Right, let me come back to you. Asad, as far as asking the court to intervene, we've seen Imran Khan saying that, telling them to look at this cipher, to look at this conspiracy, because as far as the PTI's followers are concerned, they seem to be buying into this narrative. Do you see the court involving itself in this what can one call it, conspiracy or not a conspiracy, this debate that is going on at this time? Of course, the government has given a position, they've taken a position on this, and they've categorically said, the Foreign Office has made its statement. Even we've seen the US respond, and overall it seems to be a done deal. But as far as the PTI's followers are concerned, it is an issue that is being kept alive.
Well, there's no harm. There's no harm in the courts deciding that this is a case for further probe. There is no harm in the Commission of Inquiry under the law of 1956 to come forward and say that we'll get to the heart of this matter. I think it wouldn't be best to predict what the court might do, but from a strategic sense, again, it makes sense for the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, because one will remember when they raised the cry of election rigging in 2013, the Commission of Inquiry before Justice Nasrul-Mulk was able to, as you said very rightly, MAHRUKH, keep the issue alive for years and years until that report came out in 2015, which, with certain, by the way, interesting caveats, said that the 2013 election was on the whole fair. So even here, if the courts decide, and I will agree with Abdullah Saab to the extent that the impression that was recorded by the court swinging into gear, as a lawyer, I support the fact that if you feel that there is a process that is infringing the constitution and might, block your parliamentary system in ways that we've seen before, we saw in the Tamizuddin case onward, then there is a case for urgency to be made out. But as far as public sentiment is concerned, not everybody is ready to accept the legalistic or technical argument. So for that, if you need to set up a commission of inquiry, or if you need to probe the matter further, that's all right. I don't think that's an issue. I will also say that the National Security Committee did itself no favors by first saying that there was blatant interference, and then doing this cover-up job later by saying that while accepting what we said previously, we also say that there is no conspiracy. Now, two things can be true at the same time. You can say that there was interference on the ground, but no foreign conspiracy from abroad. Be able to cross that T and dot that I think you need to do a lot of verbal jumping jacks, and the National Security Committee, by blowing hot and cold like this, has not really
Right,
improved
let
its
me go to
confidence
Rana
for
Saab on
anyone.
this. Gee, Rana Saab, if you've been hearing Asad, I think he raises a very pertinent question about the NSC's findings and how they can, arguably be contradictory in nature if you look at the last meeting and the meeting that was held following the recent one. Why are there these differences which has led to more Imran Khan and PTI, given them more fuel towards this conspiracy theory? Can you hear me, Rana Ihsan?
Yes, I can hear you.
Ji.
So the first, press release or the statement of the National Security Committee said that there was interference, and we will strongly reply back to it. And the second one said that there is no conspiracy. There is no contradiction about it. Foreign policy is all about interference in others' matters, because every country follows their own national interest. And while you're doing that, you're not looking too much on about other countries' interest. You're just trying to impose what is in interest of your country, and that is an interference. For example, when Saudi Arabia invaded Yemen, they said that you should join this war. This was an interference in our foreign policy because we had nothing to do with Yemen, and they wanted to join us, and we refused. So that was an answer to their interference. For example, today, America is saying don't buy fuel from Russia, and India has said that no, we're going to buy it. So, foreign policy is about interference into others' matters. But the fact was there a conspiracy about a regime change? Well, a regime change is a conspiracy. It's not an interference. Regime change,
Another
implementing
interesting
that
point
process.
that comes out is that why was the person who was being conspired against told in advance that he would be, he would be, there would be
Obviously,
this
there is
conspiracy? Why was he
absolutely,
warned?
Maruf, there is
Ji.
absolutely no logic to this, allegation of a conspiracy that it happened on the 7th of March and they were in government. And till 27th March, no word of conspiracy was said. Only, it came up when they knew that they had lost the majority. And in between that time, they were entertaining the American delegates in OIC. They were appreciating them. And during their government, the Foreign Office did not make a single statement regarding a regime change conspiracy. It was only in the political arena that they took this matter up. And,
Okay.
and the fact is that this government, which is claiming that we want to be independent, independence comes from your economic stability. And this PTI government was the one that did not, they took the most loans, they took the most debt possible in the history of Pakistan. They agreed to the worst terms of IMF, never heard before. There were many other programs of IMF. So this country, this government specifically, should not be claiming that they are, they were going for an independent policy, and it is because of that there is a regime change. It is absolutely organic. It is absolutely local, and this has been brewing up since the last several months. So,
Right. Okay.
if you
Ji,
do not want
Abdullah,
to
let you
agree on
answer
a certain.
this. Ji, Abdullah, your
Maruk,
comments on
first
this.
of all,
Ji.
Maruk, let me just say, there's nothing organic about what was happening in Sindh House, how the MNAs and MPAs were being approached, the money trail, how money was being brought in from Sindh,
Where is the money trail?
the rapid contingent,
Where is it?
all the evidence is there. And then for the state functionary in America to deliver a decisive note to Asad Rahim, Barrister Asad Majid Khan, to say that Pakistan will be forgiven if the vote of no confidence goes. I mean, how did he know there's a vote of no confidence happening? How did he know it's going to be filed the next day? I mean, these are all questions that need to be answered. I mean, we have the National
Because
Security
we were
Council's
talking about it
communique,
in
which was,
February.
we have the
We
National
were
Security
talking
Council.
about it in January.
You've been talking
Yeah,
about.
but the PMLN, of
they've
course,
been-
there's
they've been
a
talking
lot of
about-
time lapse also, na?
they've been-
That Ji.
Talk about overthrowing the government since day one. It never happened. So he's been delivering these marks to the ambassador, and then he said Pakistan will be forgiven if this goes ahead. I mean, these are all questions that need to be answered. We, the people of Pakistan, need answers to this. We can't let this thing sustain itself. That is why the people on the streets are so enraged. They had voted
Abdullah,
in
when unfortunately that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for being with us. Rana Ehsan Afzal, Abdullah Mumtaz Kaloon, Asad Rahim Khan, thank you for joining us. As far as when we talk about the overall political landscape is concerned, either all political parties can agree to let this government, and of course PTI include now, complete this 1 year that is left and then go into elections. Certainty is the order of the day for our all the economic challenges that we face as a country. The situation it is, and if we don't want to follow Sri Lanka's path, or we don't want to default, we really need the kind of economic stability that needs to translate to the man on the street, the inflation, the price hike, the cost to economy that we are seeing of this political upheaval overall. Also, the policies of the last government and the way things are at this time. So one hopes that that kind of political certainty can prevail, and one hopes that there can be that kind of a relationship where political parties can agree whether, to give each other that kind of space that is needed for the betterment of the country. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.